those magnolias are magnificent. I can't even, they're stunning.
Yeah, I saw them in person and was just like, clink,
Oh
and
my
was just under them.
God.
They have such a short time here, and yet,
I
like,
know.
I just try to soak them up.
I hear you. Yeah. Um, wait, you
You doing them already? The photo, the chat pack?
well, I just wanted to put it in the chat so that, yeah, I just want to put it in the chat. Hi, friend.
Hi.
How are you?
Hmm. Well, we talked about me being more real.
Yeah.
So I'm okay in the moment. I had a pretty big super meltdown at lunch.
Okay.
Um, riding a really intense wave emotionally.
Okay.
Multiple things, right? Like family member passed last week.
Right.
People I care about aren't doing well relationally. I'm having some struggles relationally. And today is the Muslim holiday of Eid, which, for many years, like no one says happy Eid, it's fine. But like sometimes I feel really lonely in like, it's like if no one noticed Christmas for an American person,
Right. It's a big deal.
like,
Yeah.
right. And just being in that minority. And then also a lot of violence happening pretty much annually around Muslim holidays. And just, there's violence happening every day. And somehow it hits me really hard when it's done on holidays, on holy days, when people are with their families and in prayer. Like, yeah, it it infuriates me and it breaks my heart. So kind of all of that just spilled over into my lunch date with my partner,
Yeah.
into a pretty big meltdown. And I was held. I was held in like really like primal crying. And then we got in a tiff because, I get weird and snarky when I'm struggling. And he's choosing to call me on that. And then so I cried, we fought, slammed some doors. I yelled behind those slammed doors. And then I came out, blew my nose, and was like, I own walking away, slamming the door and yelling. And I know that probably didn't feel good for you. And like my capacity is like, when you say short fuse, it's like I have a very stubby fuse with very little give. And it was powerful because we sat there and really talked about the last 15 months, all we've endured, the fatigue of it, the things we have in our individual personal, lives that we're working through, and the fact that we're both short fused at high numbers, trying to figure out how to care for each other with like very little capacity. So it was powerful. Like I feel better about my relationship that we could do that. And it's like, oh boy, like there's more capacity for me to build.
Right. Yeah.
Of like, okay, yeah, I'm at an 8 and I'm freaking out, but how do I consider you? And if I didn't consider you, how do I own that? How do I make it right? And I still come back to like, could I just not grow for one fucking day? Could I just have like a pause? Just like everything freezes and you just get 24 hours where you can just be like a total goofball that doesn't need to be mindful and like I'm tired. I'm just tired. That's where I'm at. And I have myself, But the older I get, it's like when I see decades of the same stuff, it's like I can see where people get jaded, furious, uh, defeated, even, you know, like to just endure. So, long story short, I'm trying to figure out what care I need. Like, who do I bribe for a massage outdoors in the next few days? You know, do I need to go away for a couple of days? Do I need what have I not taken care of here that might help? But I needed to have the meltdown and be held and loved in like top-notch messiness, like just messy, 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 to then get resourced again and be like, okay, that's where I'm at. I think I need support this week. And that the support can't all be my partner, because that's also not fair.
Right.
So there's me. It's only Wednesday.
I was going to say, we spoke on Sunday for, what we call a check-in, and it was an hour. It was an hour, and it was really deep and fulfilling and always connected. And I was just like, wow, we really know how to do this well. And about an hour ago, I was like, when did we talk? Because it almost feels like it was 5, instead of 3 or 4 days ago, it almost feels like it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. Because of the depth of the conversation and how much has transpired in the last 3 days.
Yeah.
And I'm so appreciating your saying your ability to hold the space for yourself, that you have yourself, and that you don't want to, and it's not fair to dump all of this onto your partner.
Yeah.
Because there are other people in our lives that can hold the space for a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I learned that, I definitely learned that, I don't know if I want to say I learned that the hard way, but I definitely learned that in my last relationship. And I was just like, and I also realized that there's a lot that he really does not have the capacity for at all. And so, so to have yourself, for me to have myself, and know that no matter what, at the end of the day, as hard as it is, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that washes out. I don't know what it looks like. I just know that I innately believe, God willing, strength, higher power, whatever we choose to call it, I am going to be okay. And so as one of your besties, as your partner in this podcast that we're doing, I'm appreciating hearing that from you, knowing that I can kind of navigate and find myself where I want to be and where I can be for you, and that you have yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I mean, right? Like, that's
right?
huge. It's so huge. Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you even naming that, because I think it's taken me a while to actually have myself and to be able to say, like, to even say that. And I hear it as permission, because I know I had left a message for a friend saying, hey, she's going through a hard time. Like you can lay your burdens down with me. I have myself. Right? Like you don't have to worry about me and how that might impact me and all of that stuff that us caretakers do. It's like, you can lay some of this down on me and I've got myself.
Right.
So don't, like, warmly welcome wherever you're at,
Right.
without feeling it's going to be too much or, whatever we think often.
All of that. Yes. All of
And
that.
I'm also honoring, your ask of like, hey, I see a certain part of you on the weekends and that doesn't come into the recordings as much. And it's like, oh, yeah, I think it feels really important to honor that ask from you. And then to also just like reveal a little bit more honestly for myself, as a relationship coach, like I'm struggling in the same ways, trying to find my way through a pandemic in a relationship, isolated, all of it,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and I still have my meltdowns
Yeah.
and they serve.
And they serve. Like there's no shame in it
Mhm.
because it's really necessary. It's interesting because you are one of my inner circle, my first chairs. And I have I have about 7 or 8 of these women that, are in my inner circle and my first year besties.
Mhm.
And last week, I realized that I, so the reason I'm sharing this is because I needed to really let it just kind of shed. And it's been a while since I've had a really good cry.
Mhm.
And so I reached out to, my first chairs and I just said, and I don't think I explained it well enough, but I did what I could because it's really all they had the capacity for, which was something along the lines of looking for movie recommendations, need to shed tears or need whatever, right? And interestingly enough, I had one friend who was just like, well, when I want to cry, I go to Medea, the Medea series, which is Tyler Perry and comedy. And I'm like, no, I appreciate that because I really do. Like, I appreciate wanting to kind of like bypass that. But
Mm.
I've been doing that. Like, on some level, I don't know that it's conscious, but I've been doing that. And I'm like, no, I really need to cry. I need to have a good cry. And so I watched I watched one of my go-tos, which is called Me Before You. It's
Mm.
such a sweet, 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 sweet movie. And then I also watched, and you know how I feel about my Meryl Streep. I can hardly even say the title without getting emotional, and that's okay. I watched Sophie's Choice.
Mm.
Have you seen it?
No, but I've heard how acclaimed it is and how intense
Oh
it is.
my God. I just like there wasn't a scene that she's in where I
Mm.
just like I feel her glow and her realness in her acting. I know she's acting, but there's no one that can have like there's no one like Meryl who can have a tear, one tear, and I'm just like, oh my God, my heart is breaking, right? And what I realized, because I think I watched it for the first time when it came out, which was back in the 80s,
Mhm.
maybe,
Sounds right.
right? And this is the second time I'm watching it. So I literally had forgotten the whole story. I knew the crux and the big choice that she had to make, but I hadn't really didn't remember the other choices that she had made in the movie.
Mhm.
Oh my God, it was so heart-wrenching and really perfect for what I needed. Pardon me. So I realized that for me to unleash and to just kind of cleanse myself in my tears is exactly where I want to be and need to be in that moment. Yeah. And then for my friends, like I put this out right in a text to individual people, and how it lands on them, it lands on them. I don't really think about that. I'm just like, I know that I'm being held in this moment.
Mhm.
Like everyone that I share this with knows that this is where I am and it's okay. And that's such a gift, right? To
Yeah.
have other women and other people in our lives that are like, okay, she doesn't need anything right now.
Mhm.
She's got herself and she's going through something. And
Mhm.
I'm here for her and she knows that, and it's going to be okay. Like I can't even, like, it's a voluminous for me. It really is. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
So
love that,
thank
and I
you.
love that you know yourself that way, right? And I think, I think I got that text and I was like, man, I just like these really weird period pieces. And I don't know that they're anybody else's jam, but I'm like Harriet, Selma, Lincoln, Braveheart,
Yeah.
you know, The Patriot, like things where it's like this whole epic stand for something. And within that, as an activist, there's emotion for me. But I was like trying to really hard to be like, are there Nicholas Sparks movies? Are there things I don't really watch that are kind of in that realm? And I'm glad you found what you were looking for. Yeah. And I loved you modeling, I need to cry. I know myself well enough. This is what I need. I'm not bypassing. Sometimes I've seen positive mindsets really be emotional avoidance,
Yeah.
and like the stuff's still there, right? And you know yourself well enough to know, like, I actually need this as a self-soothing mechanism.
Right.
And
Right.
and like tears are witnesses to us, you know. I feel witnessed by my tears.
So do I. Right. Yeah. And when I hear myself say those words, I'm like, how's that possible? But it's really true. And I don't feel like I need to explain it. I'm just like, yeah, that feels right in my heart.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Mm.
Um, so I just want to say I love how you're showing up right now. I am like I appreciate it so much. And so I'm feeling a lot more confident. And it could be the second cocktail talking.
You're like, yes, Facebook Live, let's do it now.
Facebook Live next week, people. Yeah. And it's interesting because there's a woman that I connected with, I'm literally probably a year ago, on through another, I was doing like a business coaching kind of a thing online through Facebook. And I met this woman, and there was something, I can't tell you what it was specifically. There was something that I really connected with.
Mm.
And so there were a couple women, but this is one woman that I was like, I think she's going to become part of my
First
first
chairs.
chairs. Yes, right. And so I've been following her, kind of watching her. She's a solopreneur, and she did a Facebook Live yesterday that I was so moved by
Mm.
the metaphors and how she's coaching her women, and how she really shows up for herself and is a
Mm.
model for herself and for the people that are learning from her. I'm like, oh my God, Lisa, I wanna, like, anyway, so I think I messaged you last night, right? And I was like, yes, let's have people on. I was like, we're having her on. And I will share her video with you because you'll really get it. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I'm like, we need women like this, more,
Yeah. And
more,
I
more and more.
love welcoming them into like this sweet container we've created,
Yeah.
right? Like the container feels solid, and then to be like, let us be a platform and amplify a voice that's doing good in the world. Like all of that. That's why I was like, yes. It's like all those things check off my ethos, and
Right.
like let
Right.
us lift up the feminine and the healing, because we
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
I love that not only you were kind of like about Facebook Live last week, it was kind of like a, and now it's like not only a yes, and let's bring on guests. And I'm also hearing in your ask for me to show up similarly as I would off camera, that you're also feeling more confident or more like trusting that it'll serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you and we've been doing this for well over 6 months. I mean, we didn't record at the beginning and then
Mm-hmm.
we started recording. We've been recording for a little over 6 months. And I have seen the growth in our relationship and our friendship, and how me naming that, which was last week, I think it seems
Mm-hmm.
like, anyway, last week when I named it, and how quickly you were like, all right, I want to get on board with this.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, I mean, this is what I make up in my head, but I also think it's true. That is because what we have established in our foundation is really solid.
Yeah.
And I don't think, were, unless we are where we are, I don't think I would be confident to invite anyone else in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and between the two of us, we have so many women to include and invite and be part of this. I mean, I'm just like, I'm over the moon. I can't even wait. Excited. Really excited
Oh, it's like,
about it.
oh my gosh, these voices we can amplify. And I also want to say, yes, I think what we have built in our friendship allows me to trust that when you're giving feedback like that, and you also did it with such grace and care, that I'm trusting you're having my back, right? That it's not just feedback to be snarky or constructive, but like that's kind of like, hey, I want to step into this next level with you, and I'm noticing a slight discrepancy between you on Saturday and you on camera.
Mhm.
And how much of that do you think you can bring? And it's like, I feel gifted permission in a way. I don't know how to explain that any further, but in you asking me to bring it, I felt like I feel like I'm given permission to be like, hey, how do I do that on the inside, right? The internal filters. And then being like, oh, and that actually serves. Of course, that serves. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, you
Mm,
froze for a second. Oh, there we
yeah.
go.
So I'm just noticing, because I've already commented on the magnolias, but they
Yes,
they are matching the flowers in your dress.
I didn't
How
even
could you,
plan that. There
like,
you go.
who got the memo, right? Oh my gosh, that is so
Well, you know that
incredible.
that pink is like my favorite color, but
Right.
yes, that's so funny.
Oh my gosh. That's, I just, wow. I love that. I so love that.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Oh
you.
my God. Pretty, pretty. And that, that shade of pink or fuchsia, whatever you want to call it. Wow. It's
It's
so
my
vibrant.
jam. I just
It,
love that color.
yeah. It feels
Yeah.
alive to me. Like,
Mhm.
right? Like, just, it's not
Mhm.
pink. It's like, ah, like,
Which feels like my spirit animal, for
ah,
like all the
yes.
gentleness that I can come through with. And I can be pretty gentle, but there is a part of me that's just like so alive and so like, I saw these this is my wish list. There was these slides in Sicily, right? Like slides they carved out of the mountain
Oh my
that are
God.
like crazy and then fall into the water. And it's like an immediate, like, yes, spirit wants to do that. One day, like, spirit wants to do that. And I'll send you a photo. But there's that part of me, like, a yes is a yes is a yes. And I think that's where I sense my aliveness. I've also had to learn like a no is a no.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sometimes harder to do and not as obvious, but the yeses are like, I've gotten emails, responded to them like hell yes, and then been like, how am I going to figure this out in the natural?
Right. Right.
But it was a yes, so
Right.
it's
And to
figure
trust
outable.
that, to really trust that yes,
Mm-hmm.
and to be like, how am I going to do this? But knowing that because it's a yes, it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know for me, when the relationship school last August was looking for supervisors for the coaches in training, I'm a teacher, but I have never coached, I've never trained coaches.
Mm.
And it was a hell yes, like on the great on high. And I was like, yes, right. And then 6 months later, as the new cohort was starting to get put together, the cohort, I knew what my schedule looked like. I knew I had no business adding anything else to my schedule, frankly.
Yeah.
And my mentor said, hey, would you be up for the next round of students? And it was like, hell yes. And then it was like, I literally cackled to myself at 7 p.m. in the growing dark, right? On
Yeah.
the laptop, because I had said yes, because it was a yes. And then there was like, oh my God, now I've got to, like, I'm not going back on that.
Right.
And I'm going to have to make space for it because it's that high of a priority. And all the stuff I've been learning is like living according to your highest values and your highest priorities is the fulfilling aliveness we seek, right? So like I'm like, that's a game changer for me. That's all I have to do is say yes to my highest priorities. Like that feels good,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. I feel the same way about, not only my clients, but also my work as a standardized patient.
Really?
And
That's so cool.
it,
Because you've
yeah,
been
it
doing that a
really,
while.
because I think about, well, like, like I think to myself, financially, I don't really have to do that. Like, I really don't have to do it. But because I can see the benefit of it
Mhm.
on so many levels, and the students, because I have learned how to give feedback, constructive feedback in a way that resonates and that they're not resistant to. That has opened so many doors for me, and I'm just like, this is necessary and it's really important, and they get it and they appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I had one student last week. I played a really hard role last week where I was a I was playing an alcoholic who was in withdrawal and was suffering from cirrhosis of the liver, so in a lot of pain, physical
Mm.
pain and emotional pain, and also really needing to have a drink. And this, I can't say enough about these students. They were so sensitive and good about how they handled the situation, and yet they asked the right questions. So, are you familiar with CAGE? CAGE. So in the medical world, there are, and I can't really think of off the top of my head, but it's an acronym. It's CAGE, CAGE. And what they do is, if you get 2 out of 4 yeses, you can pretty much diagnose someone as being an alcoholic.
Mhm.
And so in their, and I was a yes to all those questions. My response was yes, because it's yes. And so I had one student in my feedback, when I was finished giving my feedback, she's like, "Thank you so much. And that is the best feedback I have gotten ever." And I was just like, "Thank you." She's like, "No, thank you for being so honest and the way that you did and the way that you presented the feedback." And I was like, "Well, yes, and you're welcome." And I'm also aware that, when we give constructive feedback in life, like we were talking about, you know, before in when I called you on, um, there's a way to do it with grace
Yeah.
and from a place where people can learn. Because
Hmm.
if if the energy is like if the energy is resistant,
Right.
there's going to be a block. There's going to be armor up, and they're not going to really get what it is one is trying to convey. And so, and I mean, I've been doing this since for 16 years. So I've gotten a lot better at my feedback, at my constructive feedback, and I still find it sometimes really challenging,
Hmm.
you know? Um, and I'm sure you're learning this as a coach because we've
Well,
talked about.
yeah, it's my like first 9 months with coaches and training, and sometimes being a bit aloof in my feedback, like saying something and then being like, whoa, that person's triggered. And yes, maybe they have, something that's activated there from their historical stuff, or maybe I really didn't do that eloquently or caringly. So there's a lot of learning there of how to give feedback that's authentic. And I think what you did was you didn't really call me out, you called me in. And that's the difference in the energy, right? Calling someone out can fall on reactionary ears,
Right, right,
can feel non-relational or not empathic. But
right,
calling someone forward, calling someone in feels like an invitation.
right. Because I want you to, I want us to be together in this, in what we're doing. Yeah, yeah,
This
in an
is a
authentic
huge
way.
piece. Yeah. And this is a huge piece in relationships, right? When I do coaching, is like, how do we stand for us? Right? Because your ask wasn't simply for you. Your ask was for you to feel comfortable with Facebook Live and to feel like you're a little more connected to me and are let into my world a little bit more. I'm making this is my story, my words,
Yeah, yeah,
but your ask was also for me to step into a different level of authenticity. And it was a for us ask, right? And that's what I train my clients on. It's like when you're asking for that thing and you think it's selfish, know that you're also standing for us, for three, for
right.
you, for your partner, for the relationship. So a lot of people can get into like, oh, well, that's just my need. And it's like, okay, what's the cost of not getting that need met? How's that going to affect your relationship? How's that going to affect how you relate or connect to your partner? So it's a for us ask at
Right.
the end of the day, you know? And it's so important that we can hold like that it's just as important for the relational field as it is for, it's like it's a calling forward of something more,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. Mm.
Oh,
And I'm learning so much from you having done that for 16 years, you
oh,
know. And I have a question for you,
sure.
popped up in my head. Knowing how empathic you are, knowing how sensitive you are, how do you go from, like, let's say, a spongy empath, hypothetically, to kind of being a proxy in those settings, of being this character of hope? I'm imagining intensely depicting that character, maybe seeing the student be triggered or activated and trying to find their practitioner seat. How do you walk away from that? Are you affected, or do you have a method?
I am so affected,
You are.
extremely affected. So, um, We get the case typically a couple weeks prior. We have a training with the professor who's written the case. And then we have an opportunity to ask questions about the case, details about the case. And I do have one friend, and I probably need to create a circle of other SPs to practice with. I have
Mhm.
one woman right now because we've been doing this on Zoom for over a year. And in the past, when we've done this in person, we often will meet in small groups
Mhm.
the morning of or the day of and practice kind of, just our responses and whatnot. And but my friend that I practiced with wasn't doing this case. So anyway, I did I portrayed it the first time and I was just like, holy shit, this is really heavy and it's a lot. And I also went rogue. So I was not supposed to really reveal my alcoholic tendencies. I was supposed to physically have responses like shaky hands and rocking
Mhm.
back and forth. Now, not everyone's going to get that, but I really wanted my students to get to the core of the issue. So, and they had, this was a case that was about 15, a total of 15 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes. And we presented with severe pain, severe abdominal pain. And about 10 minutes in, 7 to 10 minutes in, I was like, I just was like, I blurted out, can you get me a shot of tequila? And the students were just, some of them laughed like, what is she talking about? Like, what? And some of them were like, I need to go with this. Like, they got it right away.
Mhm.
Um, and playing this person who is going through withdrawal takes a lot of energy, a lot of emotional, mental, and physical energy. And so between the end of the encounter and feedback, there's no there's no lag time. I just jump right into feedback, which is really challenging. So what I did was I said to the student, give me a moment because I need to shake this off. This is a hard and challenging role to play, and I need a moment. And they're like, I get it. I get where you're coming from. You portrayed it really well, blah, blah, blah. And so I think for me, naming it so that
Mhm.
they knew that, because they really got that because I really get into the role.
Yeah.
I feel it. I feel it in my body. And for me, it's the only way that's going to be believable as an actor, right? So
And in
anyway,
service. And in service.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, in service to what they are, because this is part of their curriculum. It's an important part of their curriculum. So anyway, um, so after kind of shedding the energy of it, then I go into my first question to them is, let's go to feedback. Before I share my feedback, I first want to hear from you how you felt about the encounter in general, and then more specifically, what you feel like you did well and what you might want to change for next time, or what you might want to do differently next time.
Mhm.
And, you know, I would say 85% of the time, we're very much on the same page. And I'm pretty much repeating differently what they shared in their response.
Yeah.
And then I kind of go a little bit further. And I'll always do some teaching. And sometimes, if, because we do this because this is their opportunity to learn empathy. Oh my God, that feels like such a big, it's like, how do you learn empathy, right? But at the end of the day, if someone is sitting bedside with you and they're just and they're being human, that's what it's all about, you
Yeah.
know? And so in the case, both of my parents have passed. And so there's an opportunity for them to say, I'm really sorry to hear that. And I call them nuggets of empathy. It doesn't take a lot.
No, it
It
doesn't.
really takes one small little sentence to say, I hear you. I appreciate where you're coming from. I'm sorry to hear that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot, many students don't have that verbiage, don't have those nuggets.
Yeah.
And they'll say something like, I understand. Ooh! Like I go, oh, not in the moment, like not as I'm acting, but I do say to them, when I heard you say, I understand, let me share with you something that's more effective
Yeah.
because I understand can be really triggering and it will
And
be
it's like, what do you understand? And like, how do I
right.
know you understand? It's a can
Right.
of worms. Yeah.
It is a can of worms. And, there have been cases where I have been like really emotional, like high strung and anxious and emotional. And I hear that and I'm like, how do you understand? Like I really get rivet. I really get amped up and I'm like, how do you understand? Have you been in this situation? And they're like, no. And then, in feedback, I have an opportunity to kind of come back and say like, this is what happens when you say, I
Mhm.
understand. Because unless you've been in that situation, there's no way that you could
Yeah.
ever understand. But here's what's more effective. So I do a lot of teaching, which is really important. And I feel like I'm kind of going on and on, but I did say to the professor, because I did this case Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. I did it for 4 days. Boy, it was really challenging. I did it for 4 days, and I did say to the professor, who I've been working with for 10 years probably, so I know her pretty well. And I said to her, I made the choice to go rogue so that they would get to the core of the issue. I really wanted them to get into the cage questions, into the alcoholism, because that's what's really important here. And she was like, no, 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 I'm really glad that you did. And so I have a feeling the next time we do this case, it'll be there'll be some changes in
Mhm.
the case. Because again, like physical attributes may not be that effective. But
Right.
if someone's in withdrawal and they're like, I need, I need, it makes a huge difference.
Wow. My gosh, your work just blows my heart open because when you say teaching empathy, and I've said this to you before, I feel like we're an empathy deficient society. And I see that in my work as well. It's like I see it in myself, when I'm really triggered and upset. It's like it's about me, it's about what hurt's been done to me, it's about me wanting to be seen. And all our couples coaching is like, oh, what do you think it's like for him over there? It's like, fuck,
Yeah.
you know, how do you think it's like for him when you do that? What do you think he's feeling right now as you say that? And you're just like, oh my God. That empathy muscle for all of my training, in reading about it and training in it, to put into practice and I think in normal moments I'm pretty heart centered and like I can feel people, right? Like my clients, that's why I'm good as a coach. But there's a real mind screw with like, and I suck at it under stress during conflict with my partner.
Right.
And yet it is the number one skill I have, attunement,
Right.
in my career. Right. And I'm just holding that like for people who are like, oh, I don't do well in my relationship. How could I be a relationship coach? And it's like, oh no, you get online with me as a client, you're going to get empathy and attunement like you've never had before. But if I'm in a fight with you, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I have empathy and attunement, big time. I have a lot of defenses.
Yeah. Humans have a lot of defenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so incredible to me that your work, while we're doing very different work, the piece that ties it together is getting people to listen to the voice of their heart and at least have it working with the mind. You know, I had an empathy coach friend who's amazing, who could be a guest for us. Um, and he had said empathy is hearing the need
Ah,
behind the words.
yes.
Right.
Hearing the need behind the words.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. Oh, that almost takes my breath away.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm. Because it's so true. We hear the content, we hear the words, we start arguing with the words, we start defending ourselves, and it's like, but underneath all of this is like a need, is a beating heart, is a scared child, is a scared animal, you know, needing something. And can I like not be an ass and hear the need? Just consider that there's a need beyond all of what I'm getting. And then tend to that need.
right.
Even if I'm not being asked directly. Like I still know, like I know my partner enough to know when he goes to certain places why he's activated and what he needs. But I can be stubborn as hell about giving it
Oh,
until my needs are met, which is like such a, you know, such a lose-lose. Like I'll do it once I'm taken care of.
yeah.
It's a big evolutionary leap for me.
Yeah.
So I just love that our work is that. I love that when I meet people from different walks of life, we are actually teaching empathy, whether it's equity, you know, educators, relationship coaches, you know, what you're doing. Like, it's all like, hey, wait, take your heart along with you.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. And, I can't even count how many times in feedback I have said to students, listen and pay attention to your intuition,
Mm.
because that will always undoubtedly be your guide. Undoubtedly be your guide, the right guide. It will never fail you, ever. You just have to trust it. You just have to trust it. But you have to trust it and know, and it takes practice. It's like muscle memory. And
Yeah.
know that your intuition will always show up for you. Always. Yeah.
How does that land for them? Because I'm thinking of medical students and I'm thinking of
I know.
academics.
I know. I think for them, it's a lot to take in, because they're learning, they're reading and book, 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 book. Everything's up here. It's
Mhm.
kind of like everything's up here,
Neck up.
neck up. So they're not really feeling anything. And so I don't know how it lands. All I can do is plant the seed,
Yeah.
because I never have more than 10 minutes. I typically have 5 minutes. It's really not enough time. It's not enough time. And I have said this to the professors and to our schedulers, and what, like, we have staff and whatnot of people who schedule us um and set up the Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And the professors, I have said many, many times over the years, there's just not enough time. We need a little more time. But in reality, like if you go into a doctor's office, because they're on the clock and the insurance, they're, I mean, they literally have maybe on a good day 10 to 15 minutes with the patient. And then they have to, and they're supposed to do everything from check in to what's happening to wrap up and maybe a prescription and then on to the next patient.
I
It's
know.
crazy.
I feel like it's so inhumane for the doctors as well,
It
because
is.
they
Yeah.
don't get to catch their breath and take a minute to check in with their intuition and to say, hmm, is that my hunch, or is that my automating, what I've seen before? That's tough. And I hear the bottom dollar, like the bottom line, you know, but I know I gave up my doctor who, after, when I didn't feel like my vitality, my life force energy for a few years, and I'd go there and he'd be like, cool, like, why don't we get you on a plant-based diet? Let's do your blood work. Your blood work looks fine. You look great. You're fine.
Right.
And I'd be like, listen, motherfucker, I did not come to you because I feel fine.
Right.
I
Right.
could do something better with my 5 p.m. on a Thursday for an hour. Like,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And then, like, the second year that happened, he's like, how about a plant-based diet? I'm like, you told me to go on a plant-based diet last year.
Right.
I'm a vegetarian. And I don't care that my lab works come back nicely, because I think lab work is like when you've actually messed it up versus the premonitions and the intuitions we get.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember my father saying the best thing. He's like, why are you expecting like an air conditioner to be a heater? Like, this is a primary care physician.
Yeah.
They're looking for like something on lab work to give you a pill for. They're not going to look at like, oh, you don't feel like you have all your bioforce energy, like your wattage feels low. You look okay. And he wrote down like, looks well nourished, well
What does that
developed.
even mean? Right?
And
Uh,
at the end of the day, I ended up having such angels in my life. It was actually my GYN who was like, tell me about your life.
yeah.
And I told her everything, and she was like, sounds like you need to quit your job. You're working 80 hours a week and you're not, sleeping enough, and you're stressed. And it was social justice in the Bronx. So it's like everything's on fire all the time. Everything's important all the time, right? And she was like, sounds like that might not be working for you. And like the moment of permission, that was like, my doctor's not trying to give me a Xanax prescription. She's saying, that sounds like a pretty big issue in your life. That's not sustainable. And she could have
Yeah.
been like, oh, you're anxious and you're tired. Here's,
Right.
anxiety meds and sleeping meds. But that's what it took, was to really have someone be curious, and as you're teaching them, empathic, and trust. Like, I kind of know if I really listen to someone, I can intuit what they might need. It's amazing. So juicy.
Mm, yeah. I can't believe we're at the end of our hour.
I know.
So let's go to the chat.
Oh, okay. I like that you were very prepared.
Um
Hmm.
is there one that speaks to you more than the others?
I only have one. The vote one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna copy
Okay.
and I'm gonna paste and do you see
It
them
might.
now?
I think what's interesting with Zoom is if you don't, like, if you're not in here when they're posted, you don't see them when you come in, which is kind of weird.
Oh, okay.
Mm. Oh my gosh. The regrettable vote thing cracks me up, but I don't really have a for credible vote. I just think it's a funny
You
question.
don't? Wow. That's
How do
impressive, I have to say. I've been alive a little bit longer than you.
Hmm. I like the what do you think is the closest thing to heaven on earth?
I agree. I agree.
Tell me.
Do you want to go first?
Hmm. I'm kind of feeling it. I'm seeing a little bit of it right now. It's the pink underbelly on the clouds, in the sun setting, and there's that like really blushed pink sky. Um, being near the water for me, waking up on the water. I work facing the water, so I'm a better human with eyes on the water.
Mm,
I think like a softened heart, being open and unarmored, kind of melting into my honey at the end of a day. It's kind of like not blending, but like mutual leaning into each other. And yeah, meals cooked on the grill these days, summer squash, grilled up kind of stuff. I learned how to use the barbecue today. So that felt like a win for the princess in me who doesn't know these things. Um, yeah, my feet in the water while like laying around on a kayak is the closest thing to heaven on earth for me. Just like hands and feet in cool water, moving kind of in a pulsing, cradling, lulled kind of way.
mm,
A big one for me, which has been hard to do without, is traveling.
mm,
And traveling not for the like Instagram fab selfies that people seem to take, not for the status, but from a place of like, I've never seen this flower before. I've never seen this bird before. I've never seen this kind of tree. Like I've never heard this kind of rhythm and music. Like for me, it's as a sensual HSP, the smells and sounds and textures of other cultures is like second cocktail laying in a hammock
oh,
drenched in gratitude kind of energy. That one I miss. um Creating, I'm doing co-writes on Zoom with other songwriters like in other states and stuff, and to just be in this place of like we both care about something, we want to write about it, and the song is gonna win.
mm,
Not my ideas, not your ideas, but the best ideas. The song is gonna win. And therefore the audience is gonna win that gets the song. So that kind of place feels like heaven on earth to me. And I call it Catter Day, which is Saturdays where there's like no schedule and everything can be long and luxurious. And I want to read for an hour, I can read, and it doesn't have to be self help, and it can be something yummy. And I can read like a music magazine. It was always a luxury item to me, is like when I have time to just read a magazine, that feels like I've arrived somewhere because I haven't had that kind of time. So I get songwriters. So it's just all this wonderful energy of that connection, connection without armor. Feels like heaven on earth to me. So all of that. Mm.
oh.
How about you? Let me read the question properly. Hang on,
Okay.
because I'm getting buzzed now. What do you think is the closest thing to heaven on earth for you?
uh, as you were finishing up your response, I noticed um, I noticed this sensation on my tongue, and I was like, oh, flavor, like cooking and good food and someone's love of cooking and how that translates on the plate and the people that are being served the food.
Mhm.
And and also, like, as I visualize that, like, how would I want to be served? How would I want to be with my company, right? On a table, on a terrace
Ooh.
in Rome or Tuscany with people that I love, with a canopy of flowers and grapevines and all the, and then the sunset kind of peeking through. So nature, um, but all of that, like, connectedness, between food and people that I love and nature, just kind of, for me, bringing it all together, it's orgasmic. It's really beautiful and orgasmic, and and the one word that keeps coming through is love, 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 love. Um, yeah.
Wow.
So that just feels so yummy and yeah.
Does. I'm sort of basking in all of that. Like I can almost touch that feeling now.
Yeah. And it would be like a round, because I love a round table. I love a round table because then everyone can see everyone. Even though we might not be conversing with everyone, we can see
Mhm.
everyone pretty well. Um, yeah, that's uh so important, and love, 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 love. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah, yeah,
such Amy. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, lovely.